Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the State of the AI Union. I am your host, Laura, and joined with me today is Mehmet Gonullu, who is head of Yassi Ventures. And I want to invite him to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his company.
Thank you very much, Laura, for inviting me to your show. I'm excited to be here today. A little bit about myself and what I do with my company. So I've been in the tech sector almost all my career, so 20 plus years now. Started, I joke with people fixing cables and formatting PCs, of course, but, I did some technology consultancy works with different scale ups coming from the US. And then I worked into shifted to the GTM part of the house, sales, marketing, and, of course, revenue operations for the past 3 years, at Yassi Ventures. So it's an advisory slash consultancy firm for startups and scale ups who want to enter to the Middle East region. So this is where I focus on my work. Of course, AI is also one of the practices where, we follow, and personally, I follow, on the latest and greatest in that field. And yeah, I'm based in Dubai, by the way, also as well. So again, thank you very much, Laura, for inviting me.
Yes, and Mehmet, I had the pleasure of being on your show a couple of weeks ago, and your show is called the CTO Show. So it's a technology show at heart, right?
Actually, my main goal of starting the podcast was to have a technology show, but with a business, I would say, attribute to it. When I was looking for names and I was trying to figure out like what's the best name for mixing these two together, technology and business. So I could call it like the business tech or something like this. But then I said, look, let me look who is the person in any organization who should understand both technology very well and the business side of the house. And it was the chief technology officer. And some of my friends, they used to joke with me sometimes calling me Mr. CTO because, I was always like talking about both things. So this is how I ended up, having the show called the CTO Show. And of course, we talk about tech, but we try to also, I would say, discuss things like related to technology, sales, marketing. This is why I had you, for example, Laura, talking about GTM. And sometimes, we talk about startups in tech, founders, marketing, and everything in between. Even I have some episodes talking about like things like mental health for tech executives and founders. We talk about, for example, longevity, and all these topics. I think, in my opinion, although like maybe they are not tech in their heart, but they are very important for tech people's, executives and founders. So this is why the show has been running for the past 3 years, and we focus, as I said, on everything related to tech and business.
Fantastic. So, Mehmet, as a technologist, and now that we are entering the age of AI, previously on some of your shows, you've talked about how 2026 is the year of agentic AI or AI agents, however we want to put it. Um, what are your thoughts now that we are in 2026? Do you feel like we have arrived?
It's funny enough, like just before I entered for this recording, I was recording for my show and I had actually a founder in that space. Agentic AI is not a buzzword for sure, Laura. Like, if your audience follow all the major tech news outlets, if you go to any press release coming from any major company today, whether they are in the AI themselves or no, they talk about implementing agents in their workspace. It is here, Laura. It's in my opinion, and I can tell you this from a humble experience myself because I started to experiment actually back in 2024 when I discovered the first open source agent framework. Of course, like I left being a developer or like a too much technical guy, but I still like to do things for myself and anything that can help me in my work. And at that time, there was something called Auto GPT and Baby GPT, something like this, which are like agents that spawn themselves and they try to do the job for you. And I said, this is the future. Even I have an episode, just I recorded my voice that I didn't have any guests with me, where I said, like, guys, this is the future. And this was like 2023 or 2024. And here we come, 2026, and we see everyone talking about agents. Agents are here. They're real. They have real use cases. And as I was saying from my own experience, I'm, experimenting, I can say, with a couple of these. Maybe some of your audience might be familiar with the names: OpenClaw, Hermes. So these are like agent frameworks. Anybody, you don't have to be too much technical. You can install them, you can play with them. And the amount of work that they can do for you, it's hilarious. So when I think about that, putting it into an enterprise perspective, because we
Mm.
know, and again, we're going to speak a little bit GTM perspective here. Every company, they try to do one of the following. Like either they try to increase their revenue, they try to decrease, their spendings, they try to raise productivity, and they try to avoid risk. I can tell you, except the last one, but for the first three, agents help exactly in that, because your agents are working 24 by 7, trying to get you more customers. They try
Mm.
to optimize your processes. So 2026 is the year of agents for sure. This is what I can tell you.
And in go to market specifically, can you give us an example of a really good AI agent deployment in the enterprise?
From go-to-market perspective, there are a lot of use cases, but let's go a step back and think about back in the days, and still maybe some companies they do it the same way today. And let's start with for example, something that your sales development representatives, the SDRs, needs to do, right? So they need to do a lot of research, they need to do a lot of preparation, they need to build lists for their prospecting and so on. So it was so much time to spend, right? Even account executives, and I remember I used to fill spreadsheets, for example, finding who are the executives of the company that I want to target, who's the CEO, the CFO, CIO, and so on. So just, these basic tasks, now today you can give them to an agent, and the agent would finish the work in no time, really in minutes. You don't need to spend hours filling spreadsheets. And this helps you also to get a better preparation before you go to talk to your customers. So just I will give you a use case. So imagine today, if you get an appointment with a Fortune 500 company CIO, Chief Information Officer, right? So one of the things that you can let your agent does is go and search, if the CIO has recently done an interview, what he said or she said. They can go and search, for example, what the company's initiatives this year related to technology. They can go and check their filings, their SEC filings, if they are a public company. So this is a lot of information that me, as a person who likes to be prepared, it helps me a lot. And actually, I did it a couple of times, when I try to reach to people, if I want to, initiate a conversation and not show too much robotic. So I read what the AI gives me. And then, of course, I still like to draft the email or the LinkedIn message in my style and my way, rather than just say, hey, first name, like I don't do this. But I mean, preparation, and this saves a lot of time in go to market. This is one of the ways. The second way, I'm personally using it also as well, because as you know, Laura, like I try to also find cool startups or scale ups that would be, willing to expand. So I use or utilize agents to go and do scouting for me. And there are like some signals that I look for. Usually it goes and scan, what's like the press releases that came out, which VC funded recently, which companies, and so on. So we can talk maybe hours and hours about it, but yeah, the use cases are endless, really.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing from you is first in go to market, the real easy step is a super stalker detective agent that kind of does all of your stalking on your prospect or, person that you're having a meeting with, and delivers it to you. And the second is like a signaler, signal finder type of
Right.
agent that you personally have used. So I think like you said, there are a lot of like use cases for agents. But I wanted to ask if you're seeing those use cases deployed in the enterprise yet, or are we still in the experimentation type of phase and still talking about hypothetically you could do it in the use case? And I know we are doing it individually as maybe people that are more familiar with AI, but I'm also thinking about what about enterprises and how are they thinking about, deploying those things?
Yeah, I think the answer is it depends on, for example, which vertical they are in. So probably if they are in, let's say, financial sector or healthcare, they would be slower in adoption, and even they are slower now with the just generative AI, and we can understand these things. But saying that, I started to see a lot of companies, especially who are like from the beginning would call them forward thinking companies, the ones who are early adopters, they are adopting this. Of course, they are not the majority yet. Let's be like honest about it. I don't like to make hypes or anything and say, yeah, it's like 90% of the population is doing that. No, it's like very few companies are doing this, but very interesting. We started to see, and I'm talking here about the region where I am from, like here, for example, in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, there's now an initiative from the government that 50% of everything related to government work should be powered by agents.
Wow.
This is something interesting, right? Of course, will it succeed or not? Time will show us. I know like people still they are kind of maybe a little bit they have kind of skepticism about AI itself, but very slowly. And what happened, especially in the past, I would say since beginning of 2026, like there was a lot of acceleration happening, which is now letting every board member in any company scratch their heads and say, hey, are we really missing out on this? Because 2020, I would say two, end of 22 when the chat GPT started it, 3 and 4, still people were trying to understand what's the whole idea of AI is about. 2025, last year, gave us the signal that no, this is not a joke. We start to see real use cases. Of course, it wasn't perfect yet, but we start to see kind of, I would call them proof of concepts here and there. 2026, when the major players like Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, they started to show us like what really we can do on the application level. And of course, when I say application, it might be your CRM, it might be your ERP, it might be your email system. So now enterprises say, oh, okay, hold on one second. We think we can benefit out of it for our business. I think, in my opinion, majority of the enterprise companies now they are in the planning phase. But what I advise them to be fast, because you don't have much
Okay.
time. Because if you don't act now, it might be late in 2 to 3 months. So I'm not trying to make a kind of fear of missing out FOMO effect here, but really, we are in an era where everything is accelerating so fast, and
Mm.
like people who doesn't try to adopt the agentic framework today, they will miss a lot because things are moving really really fast.
Yeah. And I see that as well. We actually had a project to, create an agent a few months ago. And, when the agent came out, we were like, oh, we have new technology here that does all these things. And it's kind of like really sent us backwards, I think, on, okay, we spent a lot of this time doing more planning than we actually did, releasing and launching. So I really agree with you there. Now, one of the things when we talk about agents, personally, what I'm seeing is the idea of an agent is that it does work for you. And a lot of the work that we do is within existing systems that we work in, like in an enterprise, the systems that you use, the CRM, the ERP, like all of those systems that we work on. And I've been seeing that one of the main challenges in getting agents to work well is actually in that data layer and what kind of access it has to the data, but also what kind of access to the actions that they can do within the system itself. From your viewpoint, are you seeing that people are thinking about this sort of like pre-deployment preparation before doing that, and how are they like solving for it today?
Very good question. I think what we're missing here, Laura, because of course, and I'm not saying this is to say we're doing something bad as industry, but really we're moving so fast. And one of the things that we need to double down on is education. And to
Mm.
your point, like, yeah, so maybe someone today say, hey, let's deploy AI. Of course, you cannot just deploy it like this. As you mentioned, you need to make sure that you're deploying it in a safe way. You want to deploy it, you want to do a test. Now, I'm lucky enough because I speak with a lot of people in the industry who are either building, companies around that, or who are like leaders who are trying to implement themselves. So what I'm seeing, best practices are first to deploy anything in sandboxes, which are like isolated environments. So you just try to see if the use case is working on the data, which is like a test data that you give it. The challenge here is not sometimes what happens in the sandbox doesn't go successfully in production. Of course, it's a work in progress, but the most important thing that before you start an AI project, and this is I learned, it's not like because I'm an expert, in this domain, but I learned a lot from my guests. So there are a lot of moving parts when deploying AI in a proper way. So first you need to do proper testing in a sandbox isolated environment. You need to deploy also safeguards and guardrails so you make sure that, to your point, you don't give AI access to things that it doesn't have to get access to. Because there are like catastrophic results if you do this in a way without control. So we saw some news about a company, a startup actually, that their whole database was wiped out and they didn't have even the AI deleted the backup. So we don't want to be in this place. So we want to make sure that we document what we want to do. And look, like today, the AI, if you give the instruction enough in a clear way enough, right? So it does it in a proper way. So people still talks about hallucination and all these things. Yeah, it still exists. But the problem majority of the time we see is that we are not able to communicate, which is the prompt, in a proper way. So first of all, we need to make sure that we understand how we are giving the instruction to the AI. We need to make sure that we are deploying it, as I said, first in a isolated environment to make sure that it doesn't behave in a way which is can lead to a catastrophic results, as the example I just gave. Third, make sure that the access control for this AI agent is also restricted. And by the way, like there's a new category in this space today. There are companies specializing in making sure that they protect your environment from these AI agents, I would say, accesses, right? And but we're not saying this to scare people or to let them say, no, 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 I don't want to deploy this. Just, like you need to, it's a big project, by the way, and you need to get a lot of stakeholders here with you from every, part of your organization. So you need to involve everyone. Funny enough, I spoke with someone and even they are getting people from HR to be on these calls sometimes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because the agent becomes a co-worker. Like Microsoft, they call it co-pilot, right? So some people they are calling it the co-worker, and actually it's a co-worker. The agent is a co-worker that helps you. So you need to make sure that also, um, you know how to deal with this AI. It's an information that maybe not a lot of people they know. The AI agent itself, you need to take care that it doesn't go and do something which is not acceptable behavior, right? We've seen, and again, I learned this from a lot of my guests. So we've seen use cases where the agent actually tried to blackmail, the
Yeah.
colleagues, which is, it's a funny story, right? It's funny and not funny at the same time. It's scary. So this is why we need to educate everyone in the organization about AI so they understand what to expect. And this is why I was mentioning at the beginning of the answer, like education is important here. It's very important that we enable everyone to have this knowledge. It's not like you, Laura, and me, Mehmet, that we know this and the rest, we don't care if the rest they understand this or no. So it's a this is why I was telling you, like maybe it's like the board plus the HR plus everyone who's responsible for enabling the employees that have to educate their people about what the AI can do for us, but at the same time what we should be, I would say, careful about, right? So we don't use the AI in a way, or the AI doesn't behave in a way that is not acceptable for the business. So back to your question regarding, so we need to do a lot of education. We need to start from a place which is a small scale, and then one of my guests mentioned that to me. You start from one use case. Like, don't try to implement AI for everything in your organization. So don't, like, for example, if you are let's say you are in a retail business, right? Don't try to automate and put AI in everything. Just start with one use case, maybe customer support.
Mm-hmm.
Do it perfectly, then move to the other one. Move to supply chain. Once you fix the supply chain, move to the next. So it's good also to do it in stages. And I think this is basic, because we've seen, like, every project you try to do, even if it's not AI, if you try to implement a project on a larger scale and you do it all at once, it ends up, usually with not very good results. So it's a stage by stage, but at the same time, very well planning and move fast. If you see something not working, fix it and move then to the next one.
Yeah. And just going back to our earlier question about whether enterprises are actually utilizing these AI agents. You talked about the early adopters and the rest of it. Um, I'd say that this concept of education and what the AI can or cannot do, would you say that that is a factor? Like there's maybe a fear factor or a skepticism factor in sort of bridging that gap between whether the enterprises are moving faster because maybe they're spending so much time planning for it and that might cause even like more anxiety, like, what can I do? What would the AI do? That kind of thing.
Definitely, definitely, Laura. But I would say one thing regarding the point of skepticism and the point of, moving fast without planning.
Mm,
Let us not forget that we're living also in the era of, I would say it's the content creator era actually.
yeah.
Like you and me, like yeah, of course, like you have your corporate job, I have my business, but at the end of the day, everyone is trying to be a content creator. Why I'm
Mhm.
mentioning this? Because what I have seen, it's not you or me. I can definitely say this, but I've seen like also people getting affected by these content creators who put this fear or they put the hype, right? And I think this is, unfortunately, I would say, affecting the industry not in a very good way.
Got it.
Because, for example, when you see a lot of, these people famous on YouTube, or, they have like big podcasts, or like maybe even they are on Instagram or TikTok or so whatever, they speak about, I'm gonna cut a lot of jobs, it's gonna do this. So, of course, the idea in people, and by the way, the normal people who are watching this or listening to this, actually, they have jobs, right? So, we know that any new thing get resistance. But it's not similar to when you tell someone, hey, let's move from on premise to cloud, for example. Okay, I can learn a new skill. Of course, they would push back. Or let's say you're replacing a CRM with another CRM. Of course, you see the pushback. Yeah, we don't like to get a new technology, but if we show the value, at the end, they will shift to it. But when we are talking about adopting AI, especially agentic AI, we're talking about like some people might think, like, this is after my job, right? I would
Mm,
never ever accept, to get anything that will cut my income sources, right? And this is coming from what we see and hear in these videos and so on. On the other side, we see the other, very optimistic guys. Okay, they are gonna skyrocket your business from $0 to $1 billion in no time. It's not true yet, right? And I think, this is where people, they really need to go back. And actually, this is where I think, although like people saying, no, we don't need consultants anymore. I'll say you don't, not consultant, but you need subject matter experts, people who understand, the domain, their own domain, plus the AI use cases. And this is where, people come in and say, hey, for your business, this is the assessment that we have done. And we think you just need to adopt AI here, 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 and there, right? So that's it. You don't need to do a big project and end up in a failure. At the same time, back to the point of education, the more we educate people, like, hey guys, AI is not replacing you, it's just augmenting you. And this is my own opinion. Like, I still don't believe that, like, of course, some jobs will change. I would not say it will not affect the jobs at all. Of course, it will. But always we keep giving the examples, like how, once we have the email, have anyone saw a postman recently? No, right? So when the cars came, also, of course, like no one is riding the horses, right? So it's the same concept. But the idea here with AI, ask yourself, I'm telling this to people who are a little bit kind of having the skepticism. Do you want really, if your job today is someone who keep filling Excel sheets and you just copy paste, do you want to keep doing this? I'm sure
mhm.
100% you're bored of your job, right? You're checking your phone every like 5 seconds. You're opening your email, you're opening your socials, or so on. Do something more meaningful. This is why I tell people, like, try to see, like, augment yourself with AI, and everyone should
Mm,
become like, familiar with these AI tools, in my opinion. When we have, as people in the industry, we have a lot of, I would say, job to do. We have to educate a lot, and this is what I try personally to do on my podcast, Laura.
yeah, yeah. So I hear you saying that there is a tension that exists between, on one hand, a problem that has always existed on change management. Generally, people are resistant to
Right.
change. And on the other hand, that that change is maybe made even more polarizing by the availability and the volume of news and content creation. For on both sides, skepticism, skepticism, the bad things that are coming, and the overly optimism. So there's a balance to be found here on both things.
Right.
Thank you for that. Okay, so let's switch topics a little bit. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the capital deployment in AI. Where do you see? We talked a little bit about go to market, but where do you see that AI is being invested most within an enterprise? Like where do they start, and where are they maybe under investing?
I gotta say something which is a little bit controversial, actually. So people, of course, it's happening. So capital is going a lot of, the larger language model providers. We know this for a fact. It's going for every company that mention AI. It's in its name or in their product name. We know this for a fact. But I
Mm-hmm.
haven't. But I have another opinion on this. Of course, we need to invest. And I'm talking to, you know, large venture capitalists or maybe people who like to invest in AI. I'm not saying don't invest anymore in these companies, but actually there's now, I would say, another big opportunity in everything which is related to the supply chain of the AI. So when I'm saying the supply chain of the AI, think about data centers, right? So, and in data centers, there's plenty of things. And this is like falls under deep tech because, you have the cooling, right? So we need to keep these machines cool because they get heated up, and this is why if you never have been in a data center before, you hear, you see people going like in a headset like this because of the noise of the AC units which working there. So this is what, one of the aspects I would say. Also, the other thing is power. Power is very important for AI, and I think it's underrated currently. Another one would be space technology. You might ask me, Mehmet, what's the relation? We started to hear about like the plans to build data centers in space, right? So now we have adjacent, I would say verticals related to AI, which are
Mm-hmm.
underrated. I'm expecting, a lot of capital to go that way. Now, coming back, if you are maybe an angel investor, or maybe you are an associate or a partner, and you're trying to scout today some startups, you tell me, Mehmet, we don't like these other ones. It's not easy to find, like where people are deploying today. I think vertical AI is big. And when I say vertical AI, the AI that specialize in a specific vertical, or even if you want, in a specific niche, right? I talk to a lot of people who, for example, are building AI for accounting, building AI for just the CRM, right? AI
Yes.
for ERPs, AI for, I don't know, HR. So the people who are building in that space, especially if they have, practitioner background and experience, they're building really cool products. And these products, people are buying them. So this is where we also are seeing the capital flowing today. But like mentioning just, yeah, we are an AI powered company, and then at the back end we discover you just like stitch together few automations and you call yourself AI. No, like it's not AI. We know this. I mean, yeah, so the vertical AI is very bullish on it. I think it's doing very well today. And this is where I see the capital deployed currently.
Got it. I love what you said about investing in adjacent things to the AI, including like
Yes.
data centers in space. For one, I will be excited to do that when that comes out. But let's talk about the vertical AI investment. And one of the things that SaaS gave us 20 years ago was verticalized, highly specialized SaaS solutions and systems that allowed access to people that wanted this. You could have the very specialized HR solution, etc. And we thought it was a big thing, and there was a huge SaaS market, trillions of dollars. And now we are realizing, 20 years later, that these specializations into these specialized systems created information asymmetry, siloed decisions, all of those problems it created, and an increased spend on those best of breed type of thing. As we go into verticalized AI and we have the expertise, and while the expertise may be amazing, what are some maybe future problems that can cause, that we're maybe not thinking about yet?
It's a very interesting one. So I think these are like cycles, Laura. So let's go back 20 years and try to figure out actually why in the first place we needed to have cloud, right? So it started with the not being able to scale fast, spending a lot of money on development, and also we were like also tied to the location. So these are some of the use cases why the cloud took off, first as an infrastructure and later software as a service. Now, and of course, as you mentioned, we start to specialize, like we have something for CRM, HR, and so on. Now, the problems with the AI, in my opinion, when about, so the first thing again, people will I think they start even to feel it. Like one day, Anthropic, which is behind Claude, have an announcement. Second day, OpenAI come out with an announcement. Third day, Google come with another announcement, right? So the first thing is, people thinking, okay, which language model I need to adopt in my organization, right? So this continuous race, and the continuous advancement at a very fast pace. So I think this is might create some frictions for people to decide. And again, fear of missing out. Oh, what if we choose today X, but tomorrow Y comes up with a better? And I think like there are some solutions that are floating now out there to remove this friction. So this is the first one. The second thing, I think now, because we will have, similar to the SaaS, we're gonna have the problem of, okay, how we have the single pane of glass that shows us all the agents in the enterprise, right? And how we can manage this, how we can optimize them. So we're gonna have the friction again and again. The third one, which is very interesting, the risks and the security aspect, because again, these AI models, they need to be monitored. We need to make sure that they are unbreakable. We need to make sure that they are well protected also as well. So they're like another friction that's gonna happen, and they need problem they need solution to these problems that will surface out. The other thing which I can think about from the vertical AI is how we can actually get another maybe AI layer that can let these verticals talk to each other. Because at the end of the day, we spend a lot of time creating APIs and trying to get system to stitch them together. And I don't think we did a very good job, because when I see how people say, hey, I have API integration with this, API integration with that, we start to see some solution like the MCP, and the agents framework that I was talking about, but we are still very early in this, because we need a better way, in my opinion, to make sure that these AI systems, right, talk to each others in a better way. Because we're gonna see also a lot of, and this is another problem, a little bit technical, but I call it, the token problem. Because when actually these AI start to talk to each other, so you
Yeah.
are consuming tokens, which is basically its characters that AI types to you, but tokens means compute and
Yes.
compute power. And do we have the enough compute power for these chatty agents talking to each others? So I think these are like some of the problems. So maybe there will be token optimization companies. Maybe they started already, but I'm expecting this to be mainstream also in the future, similar to what we saw with the cloud. Maybe you know that, Laura, the FinOps. So the cloud created something called FinOps, because people figured out that once we move to the cloud, we're paying a lot of money. Hold on, can we optimize the cost? I'm expecting, these kinds of problems to surface in the AI era also as well.
Okay, awesome. Mehmet, thank you so much for your insights. Really appreciate it. I think we had a great discussion around, AI
Same here.
agents, where the future of AI is going. And is there anything else that you'd like to leave the audience with before we wrap up here?
As I was mentioning a few minutes ago, just don't be scared of AI. Go and learn it. And it's so easy in these times. You get YouTube, you get, a lot of resources. Even you can use the AI itself to speak to you if you like to listen, like, right? You can watch podcasts like this one with Laura, so you can learn also about AI. Just keep yourself I would say, educated, and it's easier than before. Like my generation, people were following RSS feeds, and we were trying to get as much as information, and we used to do that manually. Thanks to AI today, you can get the latest news and the best news, in your morning as a brief, easy. So this is the first thing. Stay tuned with what's happening. Don't ignore AI because you think it's bad. Even if you don't like AI, follow the news. The second one, try to experiment with it. You will thank me later saying, hey, you know what, Mehmet, because we tried to do this, we feel very fulfilled. Because remember, when you try to do something with AI and you succeed, you feel this fulfillment that you did something which used to take with you hours. Now you do it in minutes. So this is something also you can do. And of course, last, if you want to get, really cool information about AI and many other like deep tech, you know, news, and, hear thought leaders talking about it, you can also listen to my podcast, The CTO Show with Mehmet. It's available on all the podcasting platforms and on YouTube. Dan, Laura, I want to thank you for having me with you today.
Absolutely, Mehmet. Thank you so much. And to all listeners, if you enjoyed this podcast, drop us a comment, subscribe. Otherwise, we will see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Today's episode is sponsored by Computer by DevRev. Computer is enterprise AI built on one idea. That shared memory makes AI work for go-to-market teams. It connects your systems, conversations, and deal history into one living, breathing digital memory. So your teams get accurate, trusted answers and can take action with confidence. Because Computer curates the right context before it ever hits the model, you consume up to 60% fewer tokens with every call. Find out more and start your free trial at devrev.ai.